Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, if you go to the Colorado Judicial Court website, there's been an amendment to the original complaint and information motion. Can you spot the difference between the original motion and the amended motion? Well, if you look at the charges, they don't seem to have changed. But what has changed is the pages of the motion have been trimmed down from 5 to 3, and this part has been cut out, the part dealing with the endorsed witness list. I'll come back to that in a moment. Someone on Patreon actually noticed something else that has been changed, the addition of the words domestic violence. And what I find just a little bit confusing here is the almost, it feels like a formatting error. You know, they've amended the complaint, but domestic violence is just floating above the section dealing with charges. It says charges 5, and then domestic violence is sort of floating above it. It's not really added as a charge. There's no information there. It just seems a bit odd, doesn't it? And nevertheless, those words are there. Now, also interestingly, on Patreon, we were covering the Robert Durst case, and that's a case where there clearly was domestic violence. It was something that other people witnessed. It was something that was so obvious that it was even dramatized in a film, and I think it was covered in the opening arguments of the state. They actually showed Durst saying, you know what, that was quite an accurate depiction of what happened, and then saying, and it was actually quite a lot worse things happened. The thing with domestic violence is it does tend to be something that occurs in a pattern. It also does seem to be something that follows or is associated with controlling people. So where there's a controlling patriarch, overly controlling, someone who's possessive, jealous, that kind of personality, aggressive, you tend to see something like domestic violence. Now, I don't know whether this is a typo. We do know that Andy Moorman mentioned it, I think, fairly early on. Andy Moorman spoke about domestic abuse in September 2020, so around about September the 25th, 2020. And one would imagine that he wouldn't use a word like that lightly, but one also wonders what else they know, what else Suzanne communicated to her family. Now, in terms of the other change from that particular motion, as I say, there are 2 pages that are no longer there. On the original filing, there was a page titled Endorsed Witness List and then Notice of Endorsement to be filed. And I think it's likely the defense don't want all the witnesses on this list or their personal information in the public domain. Bear in mind, we're at the stage now where the arrest affidavit is imminent. It's about to be released. It's about to be issued. It's something that should be out in the public domain. All things being equal, if there's no objection to it within the next week. And so what's happening now is both sides need to agree on what can be excluded in the document and what can be included in the document. So there might be sections that are redacted, sections that are removed, but there's certainly areas that need to be, there needs to be consensus. I know in court they talk about common cause, where both sides agree on certain factual or areas of fact. So that seems to be what is kind of happening now. I remember in the Chris Watts case, in the original affidavit, and I mean it was the same situation as now, waiting for the affidavit to be released like a hawk, everyone looking out for it. And then in the original affidavit, we did see a bunch of endorsed witnesses, and that was quite a kind of a rough list. A lot of people, there weren't really addresses. There were some names. I seem to remember Nicole Atkinson being there and a couple of other people, but sometimes you saw names without addresses. and then also a lot of other names that at that stage you didn't really know who they were, like Tammy Lee and Graham Coder and Bormhove. You didn't really know necessarily what that meant. Sometimes there were designations with the names which would show that they were part of law enforcement. You didn't always know that. But I remember at the time many fixated on the affidavit. They were, and there was a lot in that affidavit. There still is. But some, such as this channel, looked at some of those names, and one of those names happened to be one Nicole Kessinger, and figured out that she was the likeliest candidate for Watts's mistress. And that speculation turned out to be well-founded, ultimately. I wonder whether there are going to be any mistresses to look out for in this case, and could that be why there's this caution in publishing an endorsed witness list, wanting rather not to do that, because what's going to happen is whatever names are released, it's going to give the media almost like free rein to call these people up and to find out further details beyond what is released in the affidavit. But I must admit, I am confused. I'm confused at this domestic violence edit. I don't know whether it's a typo. I don't know whether it's a formatting error. I wonder whether Scott Reich can sort of talk about it. It just seems out of place. It just seems very odd. What do you guys think? In any event, if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.